Okay, so all good to go. So, hi everybody. Just want to welcome Nicola Marsh, who's joining us today. Thanks so much, Nicola, for joining us. I have to say, I was very, very amazed when I read more about Nicola's bio and what she's done. It's, yeah, pretty amazing. So, Nicola has published 77 books and sold over 8 million copies worldwide. She currently writes contemporary romance for Penguin Random House Berkeley, women's fiction for HarperCollins, Australia's Mirror imprint, and domestic suspense for Hatchet UK's Bookouture Grand Central Publishing in the US. And she was a physiotherapist for 13 years, and she now adores writing full time, raising her two dashing young heroes, sharing fine food with family and friends, barracking loudly for her beloved North Melbourne Kangaroos footy team, and her favourite is curling up with a good book. So thanks so much, Nicola, for joining us. As I said, you're a pretty amazing author, all the genres and books you've written. Just want to mention I've just read my sister's husband, which is the first of your books that I've read and really, really loved it. It was 5 out of 5 for me, really gripped me and wants me to read more of your books. So I'll be looking out for more. So yeah, thanks again for joining us. Just wondering if you want to start by telling us maybe a bit about the latest books you've written.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Jackie. Hi, everyone. Well, as you've just heard, I'm quite a busy author. I'm actually always tied to my desk. And if I'm not writing a book, I'm usually editing it. So at the moment, I'm actually just finished the final proof edits for Summer of Serenity, which is coming out with HarperCollins here September 29th. And it's actually set in a small coastal town near Inverloch in Victoria. I've got a contemporary romance, which is set here in Melbourne and also in Auckland, called The Man Band, which I love because it's nice and bright. That's actually coming out in a few weeks, actually 2 weeks today.
So is that a rom-com?
Yes, it is. Though it actually has some sort of like underlying deeper themes. It's an Anglo-Indian hero who's a doctor who's a bit older, and Harper, his love interest, actually has vitiligo, which actually I've got as well. So it has got some real underlying themes to it, but it's fun still. And right now I'm working on the final proofread for The Lion Next Door, which is my next domestic suspense novel. That's coming out August 23rd. So if you enjoyed My Sister's Husband,
okay, so you'd recommend
like that one too,
try that one next.
There's a lot of twists.
Yeah. Yeah, and could you tell, like, how do you go about writing all these books in different genres? And it's all with different publishing companies, I understand. So they'd all be putting pressure on you to finish their book, I suppose.
Yes. Well, I mean, how things work is I would sign a contract, so I would know up front sort of how long I've got to actually write the book. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd have lots and lots of time, but because I'm actually trying to juggle publishers at the moment, often I have to write them quite fast. And actually, I mean, it's interesting because I find my small town fiction takes sort of longer to write because there's a lot more characters. And if you're actually trying to invoke the warmth of a small town, there's lots of world building of that town to actually happen. As compared to, I mean, like I found, say, like My Sister's Husband, I actually wrote that in 18 days.
Oh,
Um,
yes, I did read that. Oh,
yeah,
yeah, that's
which
pretty.
is really mad, but it
Yeah.
was just there. It was just in my head, and I would
Mm,
just like sit down every day,
mm,
and the words would just pour out, and then it was like,
mm.
I finished this. Um, but of course, it gets handed in to my editor. Then
Yeah.
it comes back again with, yes, we love this, or you know what, you might need to think about this a little bit further.
Mm,
So it actually goes back and forth
mm.
to have copy edits, line edits, all sorts of different edits. I mean, it's not just writing the book; it's actually going to and fro with actually all of the books.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad you said about my sister's husband writing it so quick because I did read, I think it's mentioned at the back of the book about that. So when you wrote after you wrote it, how many times did it go back and forth?
Usually with that publisher, it gets four actual rounds
Mm,
of edits, but it gets lighter each round. So often it's that first round, which is where when it comes back, I'll have to perhaps change a character a little bit, make them more likable.
mm,
Um, think about sort of expanding things more because, of course, I mean, if you write a book very fast, it's really fast.
yeah.
Um, so then after that, it's actually handed back, and then each time after that, it's more just having a look at word usage, grammar, that type of thing. So it's really about trying to tighten the book.
Mm. And have you had any books be that quick before?
No, not that quick.
Yeah.
Though actually, the book I just mentioned, which is coming out next, the Lion Next Door, I actually wrote that in 16 days,
Oh,
which is
wow.
also just really mad. But like I said, it's more if it's in my head, it
You
just
need to
has
let
to
it come
come out
out.
really fast.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I have worked on it though. I've done lots of
Mm,
sort of expanding after that. But it was like, yeah, it was just wild.
mm, mm. And are you writing more than one at a time?
No, no. I've tried, but
Mm,
I can't because I think for me as a writer, I really need to immerse myself in that world.
mm,
And I think too, because I'm writing across three different genres, um, once I've got my head in that space, it's really hard to say, sort of try to go from a more light-hearted romance
yeah.
into something, say, that's very dark and twisted.
Mm,
So no,
mm,
but um, in saying that, like at the moment, I'm actually writing a book in one genre, but then the other book has come back to be edited.
yeah.
So
Okay.
whilst I'm not writing two at a time, I am in a way still working on two at a time.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have, like, as you're writing in that, do you have thoughts in your head of new books coming up and that as well?
I do, but I try to not even sort of
Yeah.
like think of that because it really is a thing where, I mean, if you're working on one book and you're really having to think about, what happens next, who is doing what to whom, it's really always very tempting to have that idea saying, oh, have a look at me.
Mm,
So it's like,
mm.
no, you have to wait until I finish this book first.
Yeah, yeah. And at the start, I mentioned you've written 77 books. How many years is that over?
I actually sold my first book to Harlequin, Mills and Boon, and that was published in 2004.
Okay.
So,
Mm,
in saying that, it's not all like books of 100,000 words.
mm,
So, my first 45 books for Harlequin were all about 50,000 words. And sort of after that, I've actually, sort of increased in word count. So,
mm,
at the moment, all my books are roughly between 90 to over 100,000 words.
mm. And what genre did you start off with first?
Well, I mean, with Harlequin Mills and Boone, it was actually what's called series romance. So it was mainly sort of two characters
Yeah.
who fall in love, they have obstacles, but then at the end they always have happily ever after.
Yeah. So how long after getting those first ones published did you decide you wanted to get into other genres?
Uh, fairly fairly early on,
Yeah.
actually. I think I actually wrote my first sort of mainstream book. Oh, it's hard to think back that far. Perhaps maybe about 3 or 4 years in.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's hard to think
Yeah.
back that far. It's like,
And there's been so many, yeah, so many books and
yeah.
and we've got quite a few people watching, which is really, really great. So just reminding the people watching, if you have any questions for Nicola, please type them in comments and I'll read them out. So we do have a few questions. So Patricia's wondering if you have a strict writing regime.
Not really, though. I mean, it's funny how things have changed because I mean, I've got 2 kids, so I actually sold my first book when I was expecting my first.
Mm,
So sort of back then, I just had to write sort of every time he napped or every time he slept. So I was pretty tired all the time. I really hardly had any sleep at all. And then sort of as the kids grew, I mean, it's a great job because yes, I write full time, but I'm home, so
mm,
I could look after them whilst I was writing. But often that meant I was writing whilst I had them climbing over me.
yeah.
So it was quite interesting, fun,
Mm,
challenging.
mm,
Now they're obviously older in high school, so how things work is after I sort of drop them off in the morning, I come home, do some exercise, and then do an hour of admin. So
mm,
it might be answering emails, updating Instagram, Facebook, that type of thing. Then I actually write. So I'll probably be writing from say 9:30 to 12:30. Then I'm hungry, have a probably half hour lunch break. Then I'll probably work again from maybe 1 till about 2:30.
mm,
And then I'm back into picking up kids, coming home, or taking them to sport, making tea, hanging out with the family, playing
mm.
yeah, so like I said, I mean it is fluid though, because
Yeah.
if I do have say a few books due at once where I'm writing one and having to edit the other, I
Mm,
often work at night,
mm.
up to probably about half past 10. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure, very busy, I'm sure. Mary wonders what inspires your writing.
Uh, can I say having to pay the mortgage and the school fees and the bills, which is sort of true. But it's weird. I mean, I think sort of, I mean, after I started writing all those years ago, now I can't not write. I've
Mm,
always got new sort of ideas in my head that,
mm,
and it's often weird because after I've handed in a book, I think, oh, phew, it's done. So I'll have a week of just because I love to read, so I read lots of books. I'll have a complete week off where I'll read, watch movies, but in that time, I'm always thinking, it feels weird. I really should be writing something.
mm, mm,
So yes, I think it's more that I just have to write.
mm. And growing up, did you write and did you always think you were going to be a writer?
Um, I did, but as you actually mentioned earlier, I sort of took a sort of left field into a science
Mm,
field.
mm,
I mean, like at school, at primary school, I love to read, as in, I would probably read like 8 to 10 books a week.
wow. Mm,
I love to read.
mm,
I love to spell, that sort of thing. I was a real nerd, as you can probably tell. And then high school, I loved English. Oh, it was just like, I just loved to write.
yeah.
Um, and then I sort of hit my early teens, and every day I started to keep a diary, which is actually good practice to write every single day. Now, those diaries are filled with utter crap, I should say. It's I mean, which boy I liked at the
Yeah.
time, or which footy player I had a crush on. Just awful stuff. But I did write every single day for years. I think that really helped sort
Yeah.
of hone the writing as such. I wanted to be a journalist because, once again, I wanted to write. But then I did work experience in year 10 in a physio department. And I thought, oh, it's fun. I think I'll be a physio, which was crazy because, I mean, it was 4 intensive years at university, long, long hours, and no time to do any fun writing. So I was doing that. And then, then I started working, but it was sort of, after quite a bit of time that I thought, do you know what? I'm sick of thinking about one day I'll write a book. I think I'll try. And and from then I was lucky enough to sell my first book quite quickly, and then haven't looked back.
So could you tell us a little bit about how you got that first book published and how hard or easy that was?
Okay. Well, I mean, like at the time I wanted to write a book, I actually sort of didn't have any clue as to what type of genre I wanted to write in. So I was actually at work at the time, and it was at lunch. So I looked up writing groups in Melbourne just to see if there were any other people who were like me, who thought, it might be fun to write a book. And I actually found one, and I actually heard through them that the Mills and Boon office in London were always on the lookout for new authors. Now, I hadn't read one for a long, long time. I actually had a box of my nan's Mills and Boons from sort of years and years ago that I'd read, but I thought I'll try it. And I was quite lucky that I sold my first book probably, I can't quite remember, perhaps about 8 months after I first started writing. And then, it was published in March 2004, and I was offered a 2-book contract, but then I ended up writing at least 3 books a year for Harlequin.
Yeah, well, yeah. Kelly's wondering, out of all of your books, do you have a favourite?
It's really, really hard. I actually, probably out of all of them, I would probably say that one. More because once again, it's a rom-com, but it's got some sort of deeper issues in it. And so I think it's the boy type.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard to pick one.
And I'm wondering, is any one of your genres more popular with readers?
Well, it's actually interesting because the book you held up, my sister's husband, only released October 27th last year, and by far that has done the most amazing.
I'm not surprised.
I think it's already got like nearly 3,000 reviews on Amazon, and it's still selling quite well. So it's been 8 months, and it's still out there. So I'll probably pick that one.
No, that's interesting to know. Nola wonders, do you have plot outlines for each book up in front of you so you're not getting them all confused?
No. But it's weird because I think how I've written over time has changed. I think in the past, sort of when I first started out, I liked to plot out a book sort of up front. So I sort of knew roughly what had to happen in each scene. Nowadays, no, I'll have an idea, and it's often I'll have the first few chapters sort of in my head like a movie, so I can sort of see what's happening. So I write. Then it gets a bit harder because I need to work out in advance what has to happen in the book. So as far as having to actually write them, I love to write at the start when it's all exciting and brand new and sparkly. And I really like the end because it tends to go really fast. But it's that bit right in the middle where you have to think, now, hang on a minute, this, and this has to happen. And yeah, it often takes sort of more thinking and plotting.
Kelly's in Sydney in lockdown, and she's wondering what you would recommend of your books for her to read in lockdown.
Okay. It really depends what type of things you want. If you want a real fast page turner, yeah, I'd probably go with something like My Sister's Husband. If you'd sort of like to feel warm and cozy, we've got Second Chance Lane, which actually also came out just towards the end of last year.
So is that more a rural fiction?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereabouts is that? Where's that one set?
Well, it's actually a Echuca, but it's a fictional town.
Yeah.
Just out of Echuca, because I loved Echuca as a kid. I still love it.
Yeah, it's a
I
nice
take my
place.
kids there.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what, that's just the perfect place to actually set a small town book. And that's actually book 2 of the series. The first book is Long Way Home.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I mean, yeah, if you sort of like that warmth of small towns, lots of extra characters, and it's also sort of not just young people book; it's actually older people finding love as well. So yeah.
No, thanks for those tips. Geraldine wonders if you find one genre easier to write than the other, and also if you have a favourite genre to write.
Yes, I do. As far as finding it easier, I mean, I think because I got my start in romance, even now I find that much easier to write. As far as I mean, it just flows. That said, like I said, I've actually written my last 2 suspense novels in 2 to 3 weeks, which is just madness.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, it's odd, but I mean, I do find those a bit harder to write, yet the idea flows faster from my brain to my fingertips, if that makes sense.
And do you find you're doing a lot of research for your books?
No, not really. Which is, I mean, it's why I like to invent places. So yes, it's based on a real life place usually, but if it's invented, then I'm sort of not going to have some reader saying, but hang on a minute, I've been to that place and there is no pub on that corner.
Yeah.
Which actually has happened in the past. So, but I mean, of course, I mean, I do have to, sort of look up certain things, but it's not like, say, if I'm writing in the historical genre, which would be a massive amount of time spent, having to get facts right. So no, not really.
Yeah. Nola's wondering what you like to read yourself, and I'm wondering if maybe there are some things you've been reading lately that you'd like to recommend to us.
I love to read. If I didn't have to hand in books on time by a certain time, I could easily be just on my couch, curled up, reading. I would love to actually sort of do that all day, every day if I could, but I have to work, unfortunately. But I have read some fantastic books lately. This one is
Yes.
to know,
Yeah.
like Nicola. It's the first book of hers I've read. I have raved about this book and recommended it to everybody I know because, I mean, I actually write in this genre. So in nearly every book I read, every show I watch, I can pick a twist at the start. I can pick a twist a mile away. So if a book like this grabs me all the way through and then still has a bit of a surprise at the end, I'm all in.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I absolutely love this.
yeah.
Also, a book that had a very
Oh,
great
yeah,
twist was
that's
that one.
another great one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely loved it. And I actually bought this on the blurb alone because I hadn't also read her, and it was just a real
mm,
page turner.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Um,
She's a great
what
author as well.
What's up
Mm.
next for me? I've got two books that I need more time. I've got that one all set to go, The Code Breakers, and I've got The Family Doctor as well,
Okay.
which I'm
No,
looking forward to
that's a
once
great
I
one as
finish
well. Yeah,
my
yeah.
sort of books that I'm working on, which I can't wait, and then
Mm.
I've got those to read.
Mm. No, it's in all those books you've shown are all ones that I've read, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I would totally recommend all of them too. They're
Oh,
all really great books, and also the other interesting thing is they're all authors who've we have had on Global Girls Online Book Club as well.
oh wow.
Yeah, so so it's great you chose those ones. Yeah, they certainly are great reads.
Yeah,
Um,
fantastic.
Marjorie is wondering if you have any unpublished or half-finished books that you have in storage.
That is a really interesting question. My first book that I ever wrote. So I thought, you know what? I think I will write a book. It's the only book I haven't finished. I got about
Mm,
halfway through, and it was interesting because I was working full time as a physio at the time. I'd worked in different places. I'd worked in private practice, I'd worked in community health, and I worked in occupational rehab. And I thought, you know what? I think I will write a book about a physiotherapist,
mm,
fictional, falling in love with a doctor in a community health centre, which actually didn't happen to me, but I thought it'd be nice if it did. So that's what I'm going. But you know what? It was boring because I'd sort of lived it. Not the
mm.
part where I fell in love with the doctor, but I'd worked there. I'd done it.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? This is not interesting. So yeah, after about eight chapters, I stopped. And how I actually got the idea for my first book that was published was I was at work at lunch and I was looking at a Vogue, and back then is when speed dating was just coming
Mm,
into Vogue. So I thought, oh, you know what, that might be an interesting theme for a book. So I made up a new plot, and it was all around that, and it actually sold. So
mm.
yes, that is the only book I've never finished. It's my
Yeah.
first one because it was very boring having to actually write things that I was working through and
Mm.
living every day. It was very boring.
Did you ever try and go back to it, or
No,
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 you just
that is not
yeah.
happening.
And you did say that one of your books was a series. I'm wondering how many of your books are series.
uh, Quite a few. Well, I mean, as far as in print, like I said, I've Long Way Home and Second Chance
Mm,
Lane are a series. Um, my next one that's set in Block, Son of Serenity, is the first book in what I'm hoping to be four.
okay.
So I'm actually writing book two at the moment, and
Mm,
that's due to publisher in September with the Boy Toy and the Man Bear. They're linked, but I've also got lots of ebooks online, which are series. So I've got a 5-book series and a 7-book
okay.
series and another 5-book series. So yes, I do have sort of linked
Yeah,
links
okay.
online.
And is 5 books the most you have in any of your series?
Uh, there's one that's 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
mm, okay. So quite a bit of a variety of different, yeah,
yeah.
series and yeah. So Geraldine wonders if you have a preference for series or standalone.
Um, that's an hard question. I actually really like series
Mm,
because I think once you become invested in a story, often there's one sort of secondary character who sort of has a bit of a loud voice. and it actually says, I'm here. I'd like you to tell my story too. But then again, I also like that thing of just, what, here's a story that has to be told, and at the end it's all tied up and it's done. So that's hard. I actually like both.
Mary wonders if you read your reviews.
Yes,
You
I
do?
do.
Yeah.
Wow. See this? I've got a very thick skin because I think as an author you have to have. It's just a thing I do. Yes, and I love those ones that think I'm amazing and write amazing books. Those ones that are only 1 star and write some pretty awful ones. I think we all have our own likes. A book I might like, you might hate, and vice versa. But I sort of look at them, have a small little sob, and then just turn the page. I don't cry much. It's like, how can you not connect with my baby? I created that. That's my blood, sweat, and tears that went into that.
And do you have a lot of readers reach out to you?
Yes, I do. I actually try to answer everybody.
Yeah.
And I actually had a really nice email from an 86-year-old on the weekend, and because I was so touched, I actually posted it online. And she read my sister's husband, and she just loved it. But it was just so sweet. And I thought, she's 86. I'm like, oh, that's so good.
That is, yeah.
Like, thank you.
Do you find your books are liked by a wide range of people?
Yes. I think it's quite hard to write across different genres, but it's also good because I do reach.
You'd reach a lot more, yeah.
Quite a really wide sort of age range of people, which is really good.
Geraldine's wondering if you have any authors that have inspired your writing.
Not really inspired my writing, but I do have favourite authors that I will buy every single book they actually write. But it's more like I read for enjoyment, sort of not looking to have that inspire me. But as far as sort of crime sort of novels, I really love anything that Lisa Gardner writes. She's fantastic. My probably all-time favourite author is Barbara O'Neill, who writes some amazing sort of small town fiction. Her books are really, really wonderful.
And when you're writing, do you like to share your work with anyone as you're going along, or?
No,
I
don't.
Yeah.
So, I think it's just like a habit I got into way back when, and that I actually write a pretty clean first draft. So as the idea comes out of my head, it comes onto that page, and then once it's done, it just gets sent straight to my editor.
Yeah. And Cal is interested to know, you mentioned before you have some ebooks. Why do you have them just as ebooks?
Lack of time. It's more that sort of, I think over the years I've tried lots of different things. So like at the point where I had this idea for a series, I actually just wanted to get the books up really fast. But at that time I was still having to write for publishers as well. So it was just more as a real sort of speed thing, I think, that I actually just haven't got around to
getting it. Yeah. And how many publishers are you contracted to at the moment?
3 at the moment.
3, okay.
Yeah, so I've got HarperCollins Australia, Penguin Random House in the US, and Hachette Book Couture in the UK.
Okay. Yeah, no, very impressive. could you tell us what you hope that readers will love about your books?
I mean, I think for me, like I like to keep my books and my characters real
Yeah,
in the books. So I think, and I mean, as far as well, as a reader and a writer, I'm all about dialogue.
mm,
So if it's a romance, I love the flirty banter. I mean, if it's sort of like any type of genre I write, I just like to keep it real.
yeah, yeah. And you showed us before a couple of books that are coming out soon of yours.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a bit more about what you're working on at the moment?
Okay. As well as far as like I said, I'm doing edits. Also, the final proofread for the Lie Next Door,
Mm,
uh, which I mean, I suppose as it says in the title, it's a group of 30 houses around a garden. So there are lots of different neighbours who meet and mingle. Um, but there are three couples who become quite sort of close, and lots of lies are told, hence
okay.
the lie next door.
Yeah.
Um, and as far as what I'm writing at the moment, uh, that's the book I mentioned that is sort of set in the fictional town of Inverloch. So the first book in the series is Summer of Serenity, which is coming out in September. But I'm actually writing book 2 at the moment.
Okay.
So it's a real thing, I suppose, a tale of where we've got people who've lived in a small town their whole lives and love it. And
Mm,
I suppose some people from Melbourne who come in and try and sort of tear things apart.
mm, mm. No, they sounded good. So the Lies Next Door, when will that be out?
That's August 23rd.
Okay. Oh, so that's
So yeah, so
not
it's sort
too
of
far
next
away.
month. But it's interesting that it went live on NetGalley last week.
Okay.
So and it's had quite a few raves,
Okay.
which is really really good.
That sounds
So
great.
I'm
Yeah.
thrilled about that.
Yeah. And recently, on average, how many books have you been having out each year?
uh, I've had 3 to 4.
Okay.
Um,
So
so
usually one
um,
for each
so
publisher?
yeah. Sorry.
Usually one for each publisher, is that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But sort of like last year and also uh, this year, my first domestic suspense was the Scandal,
Mm.
and that is being put out in print again in the US in September. So I'll have 4 books out from now through till the end of September.
Okay. And because your books are quite worldwide, do you find you're doing a lot of things like this online?
Yeah, which I think it's really great
Yeah.
because sort of like in the past, Fall Long Way Home, which released not last year, the year before, I actually did sort of, sort of lots of in-person, book signings in bookstores and
Mm.
big W's. I had a big book launch at Robinson's Books. But of course, then last year, I was in lockdown for about 6 months. So
Mm.
uh, I had to actually do, like even my Aussie book launches online.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, it's awful being locked down, but also in a way, it's actually changed our way of doing this. So, yeah, I mean, I've done book club visits sort of in the US
Mm.
via Zoom, which is
Mm.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's been really, really great talking to you. Do you want to let people know how they can keep in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. I have a website, www.nicolamarsh.com, but I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, everywhere you can find me. Um, but uh, if you'd like to find sort of how to find me on all those things, and I'm BookBub and Goodreads and all the rest, if you head to my website, that's got links to all those different places where I love to chat and post pictures of my life, kids,
No, sounds
boys,
good.
Lego,
Yeah. Oh.
books.
No, sounds good. And one last question before we finish, from Cal. I think she's got a good question. She said that every time, like you've written 77 books, do you do something to celebrate every time you get one published? And will you have a big party when you reach 100?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. No, I actually don't. And yet I should. I really
Mm,
think I should do something for each book.
mm,
I did go out for dinner when the Boy Toy was announced that it's actually a finalist at the moment for a big award in the US.
okay.
So I had a really nice tea out.
Mm.
But no, I should. But to 100 books, I think I'll be dancing on the table if that happens.
You have to have
Hopefully when
a big party for 100, yeah.
it'll be huge.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for joining us. I really hope we get a chance to talk to you again, and really looking forward to reading more of your books. As I said, I really loved My Sister's Husband, and thanks for everyone who joined in and the questions that everyone asked.
I'd just like to say thanks for having me, Jackie, and yeah, thanks for all the fabulous questions. I'm so glad to meet you all.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.